Welcome to All Elite Reviewing, or AER for short. This is the show on the internet where we talk about all of the programs that All Elite Wrestling, also known as AEW, has shown, which usually is the 4 wrestling shows, the 2 of them on the net, 2 of them on TV, Elevation Dark, and Dynamite and Rampage. And so we're going to talk about the past 2 weeks of action, because lately we've had this every other week kind of schedule, and that's just, like this in the way. Anyways, I'm Shameek Ghosh.
And I am Josh Starnes.
So Josh, what do you want to talk about first today?
Gosh, we got 2 whole weeks, and that's on us because we get real bad about other stuff getting in the way. So we got to catch up on Rochester and Philadelphia. And these were shows full of big happenings. It's not a surprise. People talk about hot shotting, but more it's like they're always building matches because in each one of these shows they had angles starting to build, angles continuing to build, and angles wrapping up and finishing. So it means in both of these shows, we had big things happening at the same time. some smaller stuff was continuing to build to eventually get us to Full Gear, which is now coming in 4 short weeks. Put that off a little bit. There's title changes and title happenings in the mix, but I got to start off with 2 great matches, open both Dynamites that just happened to contain Adam Cole and Jungle Boy. He's starting to think that maybe these guys are good at professional wrestling. But Adam Cole gave Jungle Boy probably his best singles match since his program with Kenny Omega. It was just phenomenal. And then Philadelphia got to see an 8-man tag match. That these things can break down into ridiculousness and insanity and just a lot of crap. Or they can be just fun-filled chaos that you just struggle to keep up with. And this one was the latter. Again, with Adam Cole, Jungle Boy, Bryan Danielson, Kenny Omega, everything. And everything but the kitchen sink got getting thrown into the mix. And it was also excellent.
Yeah, I'm actually, the more and more I see of Adam Cole, the more and more I really want to see the guy do more things. And the more and more I'm like, how is WWE just going to keep him as as just a straight up manager and not even let him wrestle? And but even when I look at him, because you can tell because he has a slight build and everything like that. But it's not like he's Marco Stunt or anything like that. And plus, I think I mentioned before, and you've confirmed his idol was Shawn Michaels, and so I see so much of that in him.
Oh yeah,
and that's the other thing is I'm not even that huge. I respect Shawn Michaels' ability. I just not that big fans of him as a person. So it's kind of nice to see someone that like Shawn's skill set, but someone that I actually don't mind rooting for. So
at least where it stops at the ring, the douchiness stops at the ring, and it's not just a reflection of who they are in real life. And not to bury Shawn, because even he nowadays goes back and looks at his behavior and goes, nope, I was a terrible person.
Right.
Whereas Adam Cole seems to be, by all indications, a really nice person who just happens to be really, really good at playing a complete dick. And he was here. I particularly like his teased dive that he stops in the middle of to go, Adam Cole, baby.
Cole, that's what I was just going to bring up. It's like with the fact that no one boos that.
No one's they go along with it.
Oh, dang, doing the catchphrase. But I think that a lot of that is a function of him being very new. He just got here, right? So yeah,
some of it, but there's a lot of new. I mean, that is over. He's over, and I expect him to just get more over, especially when they start. And this feels like it's like not something that's coming when he starts getting moved into like main event pay-per-view programs, and that seems like that's something that's inevitable when you look at his skill in the ring, his skill in the mic, and how over he is with the crowd. And great on the behind the scenes stuff. He just slotted back into BTE like he was never gone for 4 years. And there was a great, because there is a botch in the form. I mean, it's hard to do an 8-man tag without some botch. And there was one where they went up for a 4-man power bomb on Luchasaurus, and the weight distribution
he slipped a little bit.
Got away from everybody. Yep, everybody landed on their butts, and the heels just laughed it off and went around their next spot. It was fine. I mean, all right, it happens, and
it looks like a definite botch.
Oh no, it was a definite botch. But everybody went on with their lives and finished the match. But they had a great bit about it on BTE the next week. But the 4 of them were in the locker room when Michael Nakazawa comes in, and they get him to bend over so they can attempt to do the 4-man power slam and prove that they can get it right, and they cannot get him up. And all 4 of them are straining and just going, for the love of God, there's 4 of us. For God's sake, why is this so difficult? It was great. It was great.
I wish they would. itself, right? So,
exactly. I wish they would put that stuff in the show. They can't, but
yeah,
it's great.
Yeah, along with the Willie Buda sketch, but yeah, that'd be nice.
They're not gonna put that in the show either. But speaking of Marco Stunt, one of the few things two like really memorable moments that stood out from Dark. If anybody saw, like 2 weeks ago, you had the fantastic pairing of Wardlow and Sean Spears versus Marco Stunt and Fuego del Sol. And if that sounds like
why is that?
If that sounds like a mismatch matching.
It's like some little kid writes in every 6 months and says, I really like Marco Stunt. So he's like, fine, I'll put him on a match. That's it.
Hey, Wardlow threw Marco Stunt so high up in the air. I did not think he was coming down.
For that optic, for that aesthetic, like I really need to just bounce this motherfucker high. Let me just get it. And then bam. Like they do.
And I think there was one point where Spears was carrying Fuego and Marco on his shoulders at the same time and gave them both a running DVD simultaneously, and it looked like they weighed nothing, which they probably did.
Well, enjoy your contract in your car. So there you go.
Speaking of which, well, we'll get there in a second, because Rochester was up to a lot of big stuff, because besides the Adam Cole Jungle Boy spot, we also had the continuing, I don't know what you want to call it, downslide of Cody Rhodes.
With that
Black remaining in his head.
Arn,
who, as everyone's now calling him, Armed Anderson, and they're saying he should rename his son Glock Anderson. Two, yeah, I thought so. Two really good. Well, I don't say really good. Two very interesting promos from Arn back to back.
Good.
Yeah. Well, you remember them. You know what? I will say, if the point of a promo is to make you remember it and remember what is going on, you're not going to forget them.
Yeah. And I'm definitely wondering where it's going, especially because it seems to be like you also said before, that Cody is not exactly going to go heel with this whole storyline.
I assume it's about Cody getting his mojo back and challenging Malachi Black again. I assume that's the only thing I can think of, is either challenging Malachi Black or challenging somebody else. It's all I can think of.
I mean, if he wants to be over again, he has to challenge somebody else. I don't think it's going to work.
He's not going to get cheered against Malachi Black, and
that's what they're looking for. Then book someone else against him, man. It's just not going to happen against Malachi.
Well, it'll be interesting to see this week. This week's obviously Dynamite's on Saturday, so we're not talking about it. We'll be talking about it a week from now, and it seems like maybe we'll have a more clear set, because obviously at Rochester, Cody and Lee Johnson had a tag match against Dante Martin and Matt Sydal, which Lee won because Cody was out of his depth.
Let me say one thing here, because I know on this show I've kind of made my stand and my stance known against the Sydals and their gimmicks. But I will say this: first of all, you don't see Mike anymore at all. Second of all, Matt has stopped doing the fucking stupid third eye bullshit. So I'm finally kind of okay with Matt Sydal now. Just want to let everyone know.
Okay. And he's a good partner for Dante Martin, although that doesn't seem like it's going to last too much longer. But you also feel bad for Dante?
I feel bad for
for Darius?
That's how long
Darius. I know, Darius. I know. He's been on the shelf for so long, it's like he's turned invisible.
Right. And also, that's the other thing I wonder is, was Darius this good?
He's not as good as Dante. He's good. I know. No, he's good. He's maybe just a hair not quite as good as Dante, but he's close enough. And the two of them together really are magic. But it'll be interesting to see what the dynamic is, because as part of this thing, not only is Cody going through some stuff where Arn Anderson is telling him he needs to be prepared to shoot carjackers in the street, and also needs to burn all of his clothes in a barrel in front of his yard and stand around naked or something to reclaim himself. But
They had clothes on.
I say, hey, the camera cut off early. I just assumed that that's where they were going. I didn't think he was.
Like pointing a gun at him. He's like, take off your clothes.
He didn't seem like he was going to stop at it. He didn't seem like a little necktie was going to be enough to satisfy him. I think it was going to be.
You think Arn's going to get like a face tattoo or something like that?
He looks like Perry Saturn. You never know. I would have once said no, but now with this new Arn, I don't know. It doesn't seem like anything's off limits these days.
I mean, I like Arn as maybe as unconventional as it is, because it's a lot better than just holding a Denny's menu Arn. So I like this is a better.
Or falling off the ring or whatever it was that he's been doing.
Yeah.
This is better. Yeah. But then that followed in Philadelphia, where first Dante Martin went out and called out anyone to face him, and who should answer but Malachi Black. They got a match coming up. That doesn't bode well for Dante. I think Malachi Black's a little bit higher up on the org chart there, but it should be good. It should be very interesting clash of styles. I'm just wondering,
like, how far can Dante fly off of one of those kicks? Like,
that would be interesting to see. I'm assuming. I'm assuming. Well, I say assuming, I mean hoping that at least at one point he's going to come off of the top rope in some sort of double giant super twisting senton and then get kicked in the face in the middle of it and go flying back the other way. Now, I don't know if they're planning that, but they should be planning that.
Like equal and opposite reaction, like as hard as he goes, he's got to be bouncing out that hard. That's what I'm saying. So at least like we said with Wardo and Marco Stunt, the optics will be nice for this match.
Yes. And this is all happening in the middle of Lio Rush, who people may have completely forgotten was indeed the Joker at Double or Nothing 6 months ago, and then left. Well, he got hurt and he retired. Then he healed up. And then he unretired, and now he is back as a.
He got hurt just like his 10 minutes, if that, in that match that he was in.
Yeah, he's like separated his shoulder or something. All right. But he's back as apparently like a junk bond salesman, Gordon Gekko something.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about the gimmick. I don't think it. He talks it well, but the whole thing doesn't drive. And also, you kind of have Matt Hardy doing that kind of same thing. So it's just, I don't know. It felt like an unnecessary gimmick, but it gives him something to do. So.
He's a really good talker. He can probably talk up just about any gimmick. But he's the guy. I mean, he was the reason he's here is because he was in the same boat as Adam Cole. He wanted to be a wrestler. And when he came up to the main roster in WWE, they're like, no, you're going to be a manager. He was Bobby Lashley's manager. And it was a really good act because he's a really good talker, but it's not what he wanted to be. But he should.
It's ironic because MVP is actually a pretty good manager.
Yeah. Well, MVP it's a good slot because, well, it's the same thing. Because he can talk, and Bobby Lashley, that's probably his weak point. They needs a good talker. MVP's a good talker. And MVP, a younger MVP probably wouldn't have wanted to do it either. But MVP's, a little bit older. He doesn't need to be taking bumps all the time, as you can tell from him having to leave for knee surgery.
You should have, a young manager is kind of outside of the norm. I mean, having someone kind of young being a manager, that's kind of like, you just don't see that. I think there's a reason you don't see that,
No, I think a lot of guys probably, it'll be like Lio Rush and Adam Cole. They're not going to want it. They're like, no, I can go. Don't just be judging me because I'm not 6'7" and 400 pounds or something, which is what WWE does. But still, I think he would be better off. Lio Rush would be better off if maybe he just picked a gimmick that's a little bit closer to who he is. Maybe he does go out and do all this leverage buyout stuff, but I don't really buy it. When I know he makes his own albums and he's a musician and does all this other stuff. He should do that. Maybe he doesn't want to sound too close to what Hit Row's doing over in WWE, but I don't know.
But are they going to have him wrestle? I'm assuming since he,
I assume, yeah. I mean, he's obviously here to talk, but I assume he's here to wrestle.
Yeah, it seems like they're digging to the manager side of it right now. So.
It seems like maybe like a Matt Hardy thing, or like a younger Matt Hardy, where he's gathering people and he'll go out and do matches, but he's also. It seems definitely he's there to talk for the young guys who need to come up and aren't great at talking yet, so that they can cover that up. Because here he is making a pitch for Dante Martin, who they have been given mic time to, but he's very clearly like a young man who needs more mic time to come and join his stable, get him away from that fiendish Matt Sydal. So maybe Lio Rush doesn't like the third eye gimmick either. But his dastardly plan to get Matt Sydal away was to put him in a match with CM Punk on Rampage. this coming Friday. So maybe CM Punk's going to beat him up so bad he won't be around to help Dante.
Is that what's going on there? Because it was just, I thought Matt Sydal like wanted to actually face CM Punk. I didn't.
Well, I assume that he did
because like Jack Evans hair versus hair type thing.
Yeah. No, I know. I think it's a little bit smarter than that, in that it is most definitely something Matt Sydal should want, because of course you want to be in the biggest matches with the biggest guys because you're going to get noticed the most, right. And because Leo Rush is being very crafty and giving him something that sounds really good. Sydal is not thinking about the downside of it, which is that he's going to get smashed and he's not going to be there to keep Dante Martin from going out and investing all of his money in quick real estate flips or whatever it is that he and Leo Rush are going to get up to. I don't know.
Everything that the movie The Big Short was about.
Exactly. More likely, he's going to be in the back recovering from his beating, and he's not going to be there to go and get Dante off the mat after he gets beaten up by Malachi Black, and Leo Rush will be, and right. That's the logical thing.
You need attention after that match.
Exactly. But I'm looking forward to it. It should be good. In fact, that whole Rampage should be good. Now they've announced that it is going to have a 1-hour pre-show on YouTube that is going to culminate in Bryan Danielson versus Minoru Suzuki. So Rampage is going to be basically a 2-hour Rampage this week, as
Suzuki's still hanging around the US, and they're like, okay, Bryan Danielson's like, hey, since you're here.
Yeah. Well, he's been doing like a bunches of matches.
He's been wanting to fight EW people. So.
Well, he from what they said, this is very much like last minute, because he's got a match coming up with John Moxley and Eddie Kingston this Saturday on NJPW. No, on New Japan. It's the follow-up to that. It's the follow-up to the Dynamite match. They're doing the rubber match, but they're doing it on New Japan's show. And he just wrestled Joey Janela in GCW over the weekend, and Daniel Garcia over the weekend. But apparently he was like in Seattle where he finished his last match, and his manager called him and said, AEW wants to do a match with Bryan Danielson. And before he could even finish it, he was like, yeah, I'm there, because there's a chance to be in the ring with Bryan Danielson, who he's only wrestled like once before 20 years ago, and they both want it real bad. But this is apparently, I know we're going off topic here, but apparently it's the next salvo in what is now starting to become as if it wasn't a real war already, but a real war between AEW and WWE, because SmackDown has been moved to FS1 this Friday. It's off of network and onto cable due to baseball playoffs, which means basically a fair fight.
Hockey,
against, or is it hockey? Okay.
Yeah.
Are we in Stanley Cup already?
But it was,
No, it's far too early for basketball. There's no basketball going on. No, I thought it was playoffs.
I mean, it's not that far.
This week?
Yeah, no, next Wednesday's the first game. The Rockets' first game. I think the season.
Right. Yeah, but most of this stuff, like the stuff that's happening now, is maybe it isn't. It's hockey and baseball. It's a lot of baseball playoffs. Yeah. That's what's moving Dynamite around. But it's also what's moving SmackDown around.
Dynamite. So.
Yeah, no, it's baseball, because Fox has baseball playoffs, so it's the National League Championship.
Oh no, that's what I was saying. That's why Dynamite's on Saturday because of hockey.
Right. No, that's but SmackDown's on cable on Friday instead of network.
Head to head for I think 30 minutes against Rampage.
30 minutes. They have decided to make WWE decided to make SmackDown an extra 30 minutes so that it would cut into AEW's time slot, so that they could actually go head to head.
Oh,
everyone's it is 100% intentional.
Okay, because I know Tony Khan said all that shit where he's kind of trash talking, but I'm like, okay, if they kind of brought it to
that's because WWE brought it to him, and Tony Khan's like, all right, let's go. So, and everyone's assuming right? Yeah, exactly. Well, no one knows what's going to be on the show because WWE is congenitally unable to tell anyone what's going to be on the show. You just have to watch it to find out. But everyone's assuming that they have announced that the last half hour of SmackDown is running without commercials too, just to try to stick it to AEW even harder. And everyone's assuming
away at the 30 minutes.
Exactly. And with an overrun. And everyone's assuming like that's where they're going to stick like a Sasha and Becky and match, and Brock Lesnar, and God only knows what else they can come up with just to keep all the eyeballs on it. Goldberg, who's on Raw, but yeah, everything. They'll probably have Stone Cold Steve Austin come back to introduce the last segment too. So in response, they've, on top of already having a CM Punk match and a bunch of other matches, they're adding in an extra hour on YouTube to run against SmackDown while it's still on with Bobby Fish and Lee Moriarty, who were great. And I want to talk about Lee Moriarty in a second, who had a great match on Dark. And and Brian Danielson and Minoru Suzuki. So, to really get those hardcores coming over, so get them ready for Rampage. So it will be an interesting Friday.
For sure.
And including Matt Sydal getting beaten up. But in the meantime, we also had, because it was Rochester, it was the home of, so we're talking about big matches and small matches. We had the beginning of our next big storyline, which I'm assuming is going to be a pay-per-view match. Darby Allin and MJF, who have not ever really been matched up before. So it's a really good feud. And most of I was sitting and thinking about it, most of MJF's feuds have been with top tier guys who already came in, because they've been trying to make him a top tier guy. So he feuded with Cody, right, and then he feuded for a little while with Moxley, and then he feuded for, what feels like 2 years with Chris Jericho. And so now that he's, clearly a main event guy, and Darby's clearly a main event guy, like, all right, we can put two of our homegrown guys in against each other in a pay-per-view feud, and people will buy it as a main event match. We don't have to put one of these guys with somebody who was around before the company to get anybody to buy it. And I agree with that. Yeah. I like it. Plus, you got Bear Country. Plus, you got Bear Country on screen getting beaten up by John Moxley and Eddie Kingston. I thought that was great. It was short, but it was great.
Yeah, that was almost because I thought they're trying to push Bear Country as faces, so that was interesting. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the MJF Darby thing, because, like you said, they haven't really interacted before, so it's going to be nice. And Darby's gotten a lot better with his off hour ring stuff. So you kind of wonder where Sting's what antics is happening between Sting and the Pinnacle and stuff like that. And I am glad that at least I've heard, because after the Pinnacle Inner Circle feud, there hasn't been much focus of them as a group, really. But they are still being, at least the Pinnacle is still being introduced as part of the Pinnacle. That they're in there. So it's nice to see them kind of get back together, bring the band back together just for this. We'll see what happens. And I think it's going to be a good feud.
Yeah, they come together when they need to, and then they depart when they don't need to, and it just sort of depends on. And the same thing with Inner Circle, they get together when they need to, and then they depart and go and do other things when they don't need to. But Darby's getting better with his promos. He had a really good promo, a sit down with JR to talk about why he paints half his face, and is needed, because he's doing promos back and forth with MJF, who's a really good talker. So he needs to come on. And then he was beaten up by 5 masked men who everyone noted looked eerily similar to the Pinnacle, but they were wearing masks.
What are you do? Say it wasn't us, and that's the storyline.
Do you think I assume so.
At least James behind is whatever he does before. So it's gonna be. Curious to see what they do with that writing in that storyline.
Well, especially since they're not even leaving. Every announcer is going those guys have to be the Pinnacle while it's happening. So it's not like they're trying to pull. It's like they're trying to pull the wool over your eyes without pulling the wool over your eyes. Yeah.
But I wonder if Darby's going to do a song and dance number with MJF, like Jericho did. That'd be very interesting, or maybe an emo music video, probably.
I don't know if now that you've said that, I don't know if I want to see it or I'm dreading it. Part of me kind of wants to see it. I definitely do want to see another MJF dance number. I think he should do those once a year. I think we need once a year. We need MJF dance number.
The Rosie O'Donnell show we do once a year.
For the Christmas episode. Where's our somebody tweeted out, where's our MJF Christmas album? Let's have it. We also had if 8-man tag wasn't enough, a 16-man tag team match to bring some closure to the Dark Order civil war that has been going on, which allowed us. And you know what? I know we've talked about Best Friends versus Hardy Family Offices going on forever, and it is, and they're still doing it in an elevation. It's because both as groups, they're both upper middle card groups, and it's their go-to, especially for filler. They're we're going to get a good match out of these guys.
Exactly.
So it's our fallback. When we need to fill a slot, we need to do something, and we need a couple of things, or we got guys can't get on TV, and especially if we want to bring out Orange Cassidy, who still gets that main event pop whenever he comes out. And this will allow everybody to see him. So they're still pulling it out when they need it.
I guess I don't. It's hard to miss it so much when Trent isn't there. But like, I was just thinking about the other day. It's like, they used to be in that. I mean, the street fight with Proud and Powerful, which is one of the best matches ever on AEW. Like, and just they had a lot. I mean, yeah, I guess they were being pushed before, and it seems like right now they're just there. And again, I have to think a lot of it has to do with Trent being injured, but
maybe could be.
And they're not even allowing Wheeler some personality. So I don't know. Like, yeah, so
they go up and down.
Maybe this is a spot we can expect them to be in until Trent comes back.
Well, I'm assuming that the Orange Cassidy, Matt Hardy stuff is still going to be going on into something at Full Gear. I mean, they had they did. I don't know. I mean, they did stuff at. They had him at. They had stuff at All Out. So you thought maybe that was going to be the end, but it wasn't. And we had the hair versus hair match with Jack Evans, and I assume there's still a blow off to come there. I will notice that in this 16-man tag match, to make up enough guys in the Hardy family office, George Ole was out there with them, and they mentioned him a couple of times. He hasn't been on Dynamite recently. I've seen him a few times on Dark. He was there. Hey man, that gets you're the only one in the ring when that happens. It works out. Hey, you gotta eat a lot of shit before you can be hoisting that title. And speaking of, and not to knock it, because I actually did really enjoy the TJ versus Penelope Ford. I know a lot of people didn't, but I actually did like that match. But that's just a feud that's continuing, and allowed us to get to, not to gloss over the ending of the Dark Order feud, which ended the best way it could.
Right, well, real quick, so I guess that's what this, because for a long time I was thinking that maybe Bray Wyatt comes out at Rochester. That type of thing.
Doesn't sound like that's happening.
Order story was that, hey, they're finally back together, and that should happen in town, that type of thing. I think maybe that's what was going on, and so it kind of felt climactic, but also wasn't, like, because honestly, I didn't really like the fact that they were split up to begin with. Or just how they treated Adam Page, and they carried that out for so long. I got tired of seeing them fight each other. I wanted to see them go back to being on the same side, even though they're not even a cult anymore. They're more like a frat. But I'm glad they're at least back together, so we can just move on past the split.
Well, it's not like, if it seems like that was entirely predicated on getting to this show so they could do it in Brody Lee's hometown. Because so they did it by having -1 and Brody Lee's widow, Amanda Huber, come out. Brody Lee threw the papers at Evil Uno, and they gave him a dressing down and said, "Get back into that ring and take care of business and stop being an asshole." And he did, and they patched things up. John Silver ran wild, and he looked about as good on TV as he's looked in a while. They let him beat up everybody. Got
he gets into that sequence where he starts doing like the cannonball run and like doing all the other things, like it's like basically a 5-minute burst of energy. Yeah, so he's good at that.
Hardy family office bumped, like the Hardy family office is really good at bumping for people. I don't think they get enough credit for how good they are at that. Yeah, so, Private Party, Matt Hardy, Jack Evans. I think this was like, well, I mean, they're. I think that they're due for a tag team push at some point in the future. But just as in the space where they are right now, like together with like Jack Evans and Matt Hardy, they're really good at bumping for guys and making guys look great.
Yeah. But again, I'm still pushing for them to be faces again because I think they'll be great.
I agree too. I mean, that's where they need to go.
The heel thing was kind of random, and it just felt like something for them to do because they didn't have a face program for them. But we'll see. We'll see.
They should, let's put them in a tag title match against Lucha Brothers and see how far they've come along.
Right. Yeah. That'd be great.
In the meantime, we also got a title change. Sammy Guevara came to defend Fuego del Sol's honor and promised to get him back a truck or another car, replacement car for the car he lost. And
Miro
del Sol's not very.
He's fighting Jay Lethal. Even John Cena. John Cena's a car-headed, right? So yeah.
It's because Fuego del Sol's not very smart, and
well, he's the one that's contract. We don't.
That's true. We'll see how long that lasts before he bets it again. But although he was sort of pushed into it by Sammy, so I guess Sammy kind of owed him one.
He finally felt like he was kind of like the MacGuffin for the whole thing. For Sammy.
Yeah. To give him a reason to jump into it. I know I've talked a bunch about Jungle Boy needing to be the one to beat Miro, but really it's more like one of the young guys on the make. The next Darby Allin need to be the one to do it. And Sammy is as good. It sounds like they have something else in mind for Jungle Boy, which is good. But Sammy's a good guy to do this because we've been talking about like the guy who needed to do this was not Eddie Kingston. It needs to be one of these guys who was really going to get the rub from it. And he did. He beat Miro. He targeted that neck. Miro sold great for him, and I think they listened to everybody after the Sean Spears match because he reversed his order of his finish to go to hospital to the 450 splash instead of the other way around like he used to do it because that splash is much more impressive to end on.
Well, I was ready for a longer Miro reign.
It's been long. I think people don't realize how long it's been.
I got the belt, but if I was booking it, I wouldn't have booked him to win this match.
We'll see. It's been April, May, June, July, August, September, October. 7 months. 7 months is a long time.
Yeah, but for a guy, I mean, to me, dominance. There's got to be some type of correlation between dominance and time you spend holding the belt, right? So if you think of Hikaru Shida holding the belt for like a year plus, and Miro only got like months compared to that.
Well, it's not like only 7 months. It's like 60%. It's not, and I get that because some of that's like because it was like Kenny Omega having the belt for a year and John Moxley having the belt for a year. So a lot of that's tied up with.
I'm not saying it's like Lesnar beating Taker or anything like that. It's not like terrible booking. It's just that.
No, I know people really.
And he does deserve a belt.
Yeah. Well, I think people. It's tough because people really, some of those are just sort of by consequence, and some of it's, especially Miro really got himself over and got that belt over while he was the champion, and to such a degree, you're like, well, I don't. It's almost like I don't ever want to see him lose it. But it's kind of like when Chris Jericho lost the title, and at the time when he was going against Moxley, you're like, they might just have him win because he's so good as the heel champion, just keep him going for a while longer. And it's the same way with Miro. But sometimes when the time, we won't really know until afterwards. It could be that that Guevara's reign isn't so great, and
sure. Yeah, that's possible.
You might go like, okay, it wasn't worth it. So we'll see. Or it could be that it really makes Sammy the way it made Darby Allin. So it's a question. A lot of it will depend on his title defenses and how good they are. And he had one of his first runs just a week later because Cody Rhodes' new show, Rhodes to the Top, began airing after the Rochester show. And one of the things they have started doing as part of it, I guess, in order to keep that Dynamite audience, is on the first commercial break, they do promos from the Dynamite that just ended. And this one, they had a promo from Sammy Guevara laying out an open challenge, and it was met by Bobby Fish, formerly of NXT and the Undisputed Era, who said, "I want first shot," and he got first shot. And a really good match, and probably the best Bobby Fish has looked in like 2 years, 3 years.
I never really watched him. I just knew his reputation, but no, I definitely liked what I saw out of him.
Yeah,
for sure.
It was quickly announced as being signed to AEW. Also, somebody pointed out to me. I know it just sounds like we're beating a dead horse, but God, they deserve it. That on the first night of the first Dynamite, which celebrated its 2-year anniversary at the Philadelphia show, in the NXT that opposed them, Adam Cole was featured in the opening match, and Bobby Fish was featured in the main event for that night. And now both of those guys are on AEW. And like, what else do you need to know about what those two companies are doing to people right now? I don't know.
Another thing I also noticed is that it seems like if you got to keep your name going into NXT and keep it going out, you're a bigger deal than them.
That too.
Bobby Fish got to keep his shit, so they must be bigger deals than everybody else.
Yeah. But we also had a really good Rampage. I won't say a better Rampage than I was expecting, but I really liked it. I liked all 3 matches. We got a very rare Nick Jackson singles match as he went one-on-one with Bryan Danielson after some confab amongst the Elite and Bryan Danielson after the Adam Cole Jungle Boy match. And it was great. It was great.
Mm-hmm. It was a great match. You don't see Nick Jackson or even Matt in singles action that much, so that's kind of
impressive. This is like Nick Jackson's second ever singles match in AEW. He had one against Ray Phoenix in 2019. And I think at the time he had that was his first singles match in 6 years. And And that match, this was not quite as good as that. That match was like a legitimate fight. That match is usually held up as like one of the top 3 or 4 best matches in Dynamite history. And and this was very different. Like that match was exactly what you'd think. That match was all high flying, bouncing off the ropes all the time. This was different. Danielson like grounded Nick Jackson from the beginning and was just grinding on him and pounding on him, and it was fantastic.
Really nice to see Brandon Danielson get back. And also, the thing that I've noticed I was going to bring up earlier is that with these new guys coming in, especially the ones who have more clout, like let's say the Bryan Danielson, CM Punks, and the Adam Coles, you can see in their matches, they're basically picking like the future. They're like, okay, well, like I want to pick because they're all fighting against young people so far. Yeah. And so it's, like basically, I don't know if Nick Jackson's that young, but basically they're picking like great opponents, and you can see who they want to wrestle. I mean, because they've been very open that basically their booking is going to be dependent on who they want to fight. That's basically what it's going to come down to right now. So that's something that's very to see. Like we should be like, oh, who do they like? So you can tell by the people they're picking.
Look at who they're picking, and look at and what that means. Because like here and next, at the Philadelphia Rampage, you had CM Punk and Daniel Garcia. This week's coming Rampage, you're going to have Bryan Danielson and Bobby Fish. Somewhere you're gonna have Bobby Fish and Lee Moriarty. Like, look at those guys that they're picking, and that tells you a whole heck of a lot. We had the Rampage before this, you had CM Punk and Powerhouse Hobbs. I mean, those are the guys who are gonna be the guys.
Yeah, CM Punk stops Powerhouse Hobbs and said, all right, let's go, let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. You had another long Jade Cargill match. These are starting to begin, not regular, but it seems like they're starting to feel like she's ready for stuff. In a 3-way, anything goes with Nyla Rose and Thunder Rosa, and Cargill went over.
Had non-squashes before, but they haven't been there
that much. She had
non-squash that I can think of that comes to mind.
No, she had a fairly long competitive match with Layla Hirsch. I think that was actually probably up until this was probably like the longest match she'd had. That went like a good 6 minutes or so.
Layla has been on TV in a bit. That's interesting.
Yeah, she's been on Elevation and Dark. She'll come and go. She's like Kylan King had been gone for a while, and then she was suddenly on Elevation and Dark this week. So I was like, they rotate.
But Jade went from having those type of matches to having a 3-way against Thunder Rosa and Nyla. So that's I think a big step in that direction for her, and she did great. I mean, I think she's definitely going to put a lot of equity behind, and I think it's going to be very worth it for her.
And just in time for them to announce the creation of the TBS title. It's the secondary women's title. That feels like that has Jade Cargill written all over it. If you want to keep her, in the mix without having to burn her out going up against Britt Baker in a title match.
Or sacrifice Britt Baker. So
that's what I'm saying. You can sacrifice her to Britt Baker, or you can make her like a Miro like monster for a while, who can make like an up and coming wrestler, women's division wrestler coming up.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then it's like, who's the first person going to beat her? Is it going to be Ruby Soho? Is it going to be, Sky Blue? One of these people they've been bringing up and slowly building.
So you think they're going to have? Well, I guess they did it with the TNT and the world title, where you got basically two heel belts, but because. Because I was wondering if also Thunder Rosa could be the one. No, they're going to save her, I think, for the world title.
I think that's really big.
I was thinking Ruby is also a good chance to get the TBS title.
I think it's a good and they're going to be doing and we're going to see a lot of this because they're going to do an Eliminator Championship tournament for it starting in January. In fact, they had a whole bunch of promos for that, so it should be some interesting matches and a lot of mixtures in the women's title scene that we haven't seen recently. Although they've been mixing up a lot. We also had a great, I'm going to jump ahead. We had what I thought was great. People were down on it, but a great Hikaru Shida, Serena Deeb match. We haven't had a match on Dynamite in a while. Here they came out and had.
I thought it was pretty good.
I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was perfectly fine. Loved the angle. I think some people said it was sloppy. I didn't really see it. I thought it was. I really enjoyed it. And then Serena Deeb cracked that trophy over Shida's head and said, "No win for you." Yep. Yep.
Thought it was great. Doing more things with her. Is she even on? Is she back on the WA yet? Doing stuff there?
No, but this is like her first match back since her last knee surgery. So I'm assuming that she will be back doing some stuff. She and Thunder Rosa will both be back over there doing some stuff for a little bit. So we shall see. But what we got now, like 4 or 5 different women's stories now. You got Britt Baker against whoever her next opponent's going to be that they haven't really picked out yet. Thunder Rosa versus Jade and Nyla Rose. You still got Tay versus Bunny and Penelope.
With all this new stuff coming on, and you have like 22-minute darks. So it's one of those things. Like, you got to put these people on TV if you're going to be bringing them in. So you're not going to pay them to sit, right? So.
Yeah. And it's good.
So I hope that at least they started extending their non-TV stuff to accommodate all these wrestlers.
And that's probably a good time to jump. We jumped a little bit forward, but it's a little bit good time to jump to ECW. I do want to point out the hair versus hair match between Orange Cassidy and Jack Evans, and surprising nobody, Jack Evans got his hair shaved. And it was pretty good. Had a lot of schmoz towards the end, but was decent. The thing I want to point out is Cassidy's warm-up match for it, which was a one-on-one against Nick Camarado, which was on Dark, which was fantastic. I mean, it was a little bit.
It was really good. Camarado was definitely the best I've ever been in.
Oh yeah, for sure. For
sure. It makes you kind of, again, it's like just like Lee Johnson. It's like they could only get away from this QT Cody stuff and just do their own thing. Then maybe they wouldn't. Maybe we'd like them more. But it was very entertaining. That's for sure. That
it was a really interesting mix of styles that we don't get enough of. But,
and Camarado was healing it up and yelling and doing all this, like big ogre man type of thing, and it worked. You don't usually hear him talking.
Yeah, and Nick Camarado's and he's bouncing all over the place because then he was back on Dynamite in Philadelphia wrestling Darby Allin in a fairly short match, and it was not as good as the Orange Cassidy match, but basically as a lead up for Darby to get beat up by the Pinnacle, but it was still good, and he got out there and he had some time, and it gave QT Marshall a reason to get on camera, and who doesn't love that?
Me.
Yeah, I will bring the QT.
No, I'm not going to go on. That was pretty much the whole last episode. We ran you on QT, so I mean, I think I feel like very clear here. There's really no point. We're running it.
According to QT Ghosh over here, but that's all right. I'm just going to keep picking at that. In fact, I think we've already bounced into Philadelphia quite a bit, obviously in the classic ECW arena, but we have purposely kept away from the biggest thing, and actually the most fun that the opening 8-man tag was actually a tremendous amount of fun. I think it got like 4 3/4 stars in the Wrestling Observer, but actually the bit that the one I love the most, and it's because I'm very, very easy, was you put together a ladder match that has Andrade and Pac and John Moxley and Lance Archer and Matt Hardy and Orange Cassidy in it. You're going to be in for some fun. Yeah. I mean, all their top guys, you're going to have, and some great workers among their top guys, you're going to have some fun. And then I should say surprising no one. There were a lot of people who were legitimately surprised. I was not. I was like, as soon as they said Joker, I was like, Joker's going to be at Hangman. The only person it could possibly be was a lot of people were expecting it to be like a new face they signed, and I'm thinking if it was a pay-per-view, probably, but for TV, from where they are, for needing to get to the pay-per-view, the only person who made sense was Hangman.
Didn't Malachi show up on a TV show?
Yeah, but not as like the Joker.
And he was on the last one that was.
Well, they've brought in guys. They brought in new signings on TV shows, but not as like the Joker on a. The surprise entrance on the handful of times they have done a certain, and now to step back a second, they have not done number one contender ladder match. Well, they haven't done it as a ladder match on
right. That's a good new guy.
But like their casino battle royale, I think they've done like one other battle royale for a number one shot on TV before, and it did not introduce anyone. They're not going to do that on TV. In fact, they've been told specifically not to. Like apparently after Sting's debut, TNT asked them to never have a big sign. I don't know how they got away with it with Malachi Black. It's like TNT asked them not to have any more surprise debuts that they do not advertise happen because they want to market the hell out. Which is like you got like CM Punk being the worst kept secret in the world, so they can market it without never saying his name.
Just be like, "Fuck you." They told Vince that. They're like, "Screw you! I'm not doing that."
Which is why, I was totally expecting Hangman. Hangman was the person to both be the Joker and then win the match, and then it turned out Hangman was actually the Joker for the second time. It was a Joker in a number one contender battle royale that he won.
And of course, Big Popper coming out, and
giant pop.
Face Malachi Black and get cheered. I think Jay's at that
Not only was I mean, people were talking about when he lost that eliminator match that they're killing Hangman. He'll never get this hot again.
Kenny, right?
That was all. I figured that was always the plan, and I thought the people who were saying that were like, "You guys are just like way overthinking it," and it was obvious here. He came out to a giant fan reaction. He was so over that when Jon Moxley punched him, Jon Moxley got booed. I think that's like the first time I've ever seen Jon Moxley get booed in an AEW ring. That's how over Hangman is. I mean, he is ready. And in fact, Tony Khan announced today that the main event for Full Gear is going to be Kenny Omega versus Hangman Adam Page. So 2 years they've been working on this and getting ready to pay it off. And I'm expecting two things out of Full Gear. I'm expecting Hangman Adam Page to kick out of the One-Winged Angel. And I'm expecting Hangman Adam Page to win the championship. They have been building both of those storylines for 2 years. And if they don't pay them both off at this pay-per-view, then I'm going to assume they don't know what they're doing. And everything.
Yeah, it's almost like burying Adam Page at this point, have him lose that match. Unless it could be like a dirty loss, the interference.
No, even that. No, people would set the building on fire at this point if they cheated him out of it. That's like at this point like classic WWE booking. Where
right. That's right.
Like burn it down and get some heat so everybody comes back and pays double. For the next whoever wins. I'm like, no. There is a point where that is not going to work, and all you're going to get is everyone hating you, and we are past that point now. You can't do that. Oh yeah. I mean, that's basically what they did with the Eliminator match in July. They had him lose, and now he's coming back, and now he has to win.
Retribution.
Exactly. And he won in a fantastic ladder match. I mean, they had some bumps. Andrade took like 2 crazy bumps, and I can't believe. I mean, you always hear that wrestlers are crazy, but Pac agreeing to take that pile driver off the ladder through a table, I would have said no way. I would have said nope, doesn't work for me, brother.
Yeah, that was completely nuts. Yeah, there were a lot of great spots in this one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, what was it? Orange gave the orange punch to Lance Archer while he was stuck in a ladder. And I think, and then he took like a off the top rope from Matt, leg drop through a ladder from Matt Hardy onto the floor. I mean, that looked brutal. And Andrade did like a bunch of great ladder spots. He's had like some best Money in the Bank ladder spots the last couple of years he was in WWE. So I expected some good ones here, and he did a couple. What was like one like off of the top of the ladder through a ladder onto the floor? I don't know. He's walking around after that.
Right. Yeah. But we were talking about retribution. Who did not get retribution?
Who?
Brian Cage.
Brian Cage did not get retribution.
As
soon as they said it was going to be for the FTW title, you're like, well, he can't possibly win it. But then you start to go,
why? And the second of all, then he's not winning.
I think at the one hand, I'm like, well, what's the point of this feud if the babyface isn't going to win at the end? I'm like, I get that. They think Ricky Starks has more upside potential than Brian Cage because they are right. Ricky Starks does have more upside potential than Brian Cage, but Ricky Starks already won one of these. So why have it go again and then have Ricky Starks win again?
It feels like they're burying Brian at this point.
It does kind of feel that way, especially because after they had to put it off for so long for injuries, and now I'm assuming that that's probably not over. And they're going to pick it up again. I don't get it. I don't get what the point of it was. So
I don't get it either. It's almost like, and probably this is pure conjecture and speculation, but it's one of those things that's like, God damn it, Brian, you and your wife just keep bitching. Fine, we'll put you in the match.
The only thing I can think of, I do have a separate theory, but actually I do, before we get into it, since this was on Rampage that closed out, I do want to point out a couple of things from Dark just to get them out of the back, is that sure. I'm finally getting interested in Joey Janela, mainly because the Joey Janela Sunny Kiss. Well,
I mean, honestly, the frustrating thing was interesting because just
it was not. It was not. Oh, God, it was. It was not. If he ever starts talking about frustrated again, I'm just throwing a shoe through the TV. I don't want to hear it. But the best thing about like the recent turn is he's been talking a little bit less and getting beaten up by Sunny Kiss more. which in turn is giving options for the newly debuted Kayla Rossi to like jump and do spinning corkscrews off of the top rope onto Sunny Kiss. And I am interested in this for the first time.
Going on with them, but yeah,
I have stopped going. Yes, exactly. I have stopped going. This is taking too long. I don't care, and I'm back on the wagon. I want to see more of that. But also because some of this was in the.
I like Sunny in this. I think Sunny's been showing.
I do too.
That's actually right.
I do too.
Or Sunny kicking Joey's ass a little bit. So.
Exactly, and in the middle of some really good matches, there were 3 great elevation matches, and one of them, strange, was a Joey Janela match. Joey Janela versus Crowbar. Of course, you had in the ECW arena. Blue Meanie came back out to make sure that to chase him. Exactly.
But it said AEW.
But it said AEW. So that was. I mean, he's done that a bunch. He did that. Did that for MLW and for a couple of other places. But it was great. There was a really great like reverse DDT onto a chair spot that I really liked. And Crowbar is so smooth. I mean, he made Janela look a lot better than Janela usually looks in this match.
One thing though, I did notice Crowbar is a little slow.
Yeah,
he's
slow,
good,
but smooth.
I don't know if it's thing or if that's his wrestling style.
I don't either because I haven't watched enough ECW. I mean, he's got to be in his mid 40s, so I would be willing to bet an age thing. But you know, I didn't find any fault with it.
No, he's very technically sound. That's for sure. Yeah.
There were 2 other
hardcore deathmatch type or hardcore
that is guy. What I understand. Yeah, I mean, his name is Crowbar, but yeah, that's what I understand.
But he's age. I mean, so yeah, you know, so.
And he's walking around a lot better than a lot of others.
ECW nostalgia come in, you know. Of course, I'm going to pop big for Blue Meanie every time, so that was really cool.
Well, obviously, it's in the
they did a nice little segment later on where they basically talked up AEW, and so I guess they're not signed or anything, right? No. They're just. But I thought it was interesting that they went out of their way to do like one of those that segment.
They gave him promo time. They gave him a segment. Yeah. Well, they were doing very much a gesture to the ECW. In fact, apparently they had since a lot of ECW alumni work on the show, and they did do a thing after the end of the show for just people in the stands where they brought out all the former ECW guys like Jerry Lynn and Chris Jericho and Taz, and apparently CM Punk. Well, he was the WWE CW champion, which is that's
why everybody laughed.
Yeah. No, but it was funny. And we brought him out to say goodbyes. But there was also a really great FTR. We don't get to see enough FTR, and this should have been on TV. And even though they've been on TV recently, this really should have been on TV. FTR versus LSG and Lee Moriarty. Lee Moriarty is a great indie wrestler who's recently signed. He and Dax had unbelievable chemistry in this match. I mean, this was like one of the longest FTR dark matches I've seen. I think they probably went like 10 minutes, and it was fantastic. They did one where Dax tried to get him up into a brainbuster, and he turned it around into a spiked DDT on Dax's head. That was really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, all those probably big for reversals. So those are
for sure.
Very well done. Yeah.
And
it wasn't like him just facing like a scrub or anything.
No, this was they had to work. They had to work, and this is the kind of stuff Lee Moriarty should be getting on the Dynamite and doing this sort of stuff on Dynamite, and people getting over like nobody's business.
Yeah, and, well, I guess they pick a number at this point, but yeah.
Yep. And Ruby Soho came out and got a Thunder Rosa pop for coming out, so it's not just about the Britt Baker program. Ruby Soho is over. She's already, I think, wrestled more here and more main event time than she did in like the last 2 years at WWE. Yeah. But she went over Emi Sakura. They had a really, really good match. Emi Sakura is a solid hand, so she can have a good match with anybody.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, if anybody, Emi Sakura is a good one to work with. And again, it's not a squash or anything because Emi Sakura is, I've seen her win a couple matches on Dark and Elevation already.
Mostly wins. Yeah, she mostly wins. Yeah.
Also, Lulu Pencil's so like anime. Like, it's so like such an anime.
Her name's Lulu Pencil.
I know.
I'm becoming a Lulu Pencil fan. I'm going to join the Pencil Army. That's what I'm going to do. Is that a Lulu Pencil? It is 100% a thing. Yes, look it up. Yeah. You'll see it.
Is it going to be like a Virgil thing where she turns?
Well, she's. I hope not. She is already never mind the fact that Virgil has been on AEW and had probably still the best lines ever in the history of Dynamite. Right. Chris Jericho's talent is like the breadsticks at Olive Garden. Unlimited. Yeah. but Lulu Pencil's already like 1,000 times better than Virgil ever was. So it's okay.
Yeah, but so that's fun for Emi Sakura. So, and it was, of course, a very good match between them. I enjoyed it a lot.
And hey, and get something to look forward to next week when I don't think it's Shida. I think it actually is. No, it's Riho on Elevation next week. Riho versus the returning Maki Ito.
Oh, nice. The headbutt girl.
Headbutt girl. Headbutt singing crazy girl. I against Riho.
I like Maki Ito.
Do what?
I thought you didn't like Maki Ito.
Oh no, I think Maki Ito is great. I think she can't wrestle to save her life, but I think she's great.
Hilarious. Yeah.
She's hilarious. Yeah. Oh no, I'll take all the Maki Ito I can get. I prefer it if it would be even better if she actually could work a match, but at this point, I don't care.
What's she there to do, right? Like, actually, how do you see Maki Ito versus Abaddon? Because that'd be interesting.
Yep, I will take that too. Especially now that Abaddon's got the mohawk and even more crazy look. Yeah, bring it on. Yeah. Bring it all on.
Just lean into the entertaining spectacle part of this whole industry, you know?
Exactly. So. And speaking of entertaining spectacle, 2.0 led off Rampage and got to have a promo against CM Punk. And I want somebody to go back and look at their wrestling diary from a year ago and say, like,
that's how they talk. It's so cartoony.
Jeff Parker. Yeah, Jeff is very, but it works. It totally works, especially that. Hey, I want somebody to go back in their wrestling diary a year ago and see if they had. Oh yeah, a year from now, 2.0 is going to be doing a one-on-one promo battle with CM Punk right before they send Daniel Garcia out to wrestle him. Yeah, nobody saw that, but and it was a lot of fun. Once again, look at who they're choosing to wrestle. Red Death. I know you make fun of his tights, but he can go.
Not just his tights, his gimmick or lack thereof, but he's definitely good in the ring, which I think that he just needs either coaching or a gimmick, but I just feel like they're throwing him out there to lose.
Well, he's even mentioned that himself, but he's like Jungle Boy in that. He's partly who he's wrestling and partly how good he is. Well, but he hasn't won. He hasn't won much recently, but it doesn't matter because the guys he's losing against are like the Young Bucks and the Lucha Brothers and Adam Cole and Kenny Omega, and they make him look great. And it's the same thing with Daniel Garcia. If you look, who's Daniel Garcia wrestled? He's wrestled CM Punk. He's wrestled Sting. He's wrestled John Moxley. It's not like nothing.
He needs a personality. He doesn't make me stop calling him Daniel Garcia.
Oh, I think his gimmick. Maybe he just thinks about it. His gimmick is he's the guy. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like his gimmick is that he's the guy who comes out and wrestles well. That's who he is. He doesn't need like the rest of it. He's the guy who comes out and wrestles well. And he will be a top guy, but he's not going to beat CM Punk, but he will be a top guy. The same way the Acclaimed were not going to beat Lucha Brothers, and we're probably not going to have one of the better Lucha Brothers tag matches, but I still had a lot of fun with it because it's hard not to have fun with Lucha Brothers.
I was like so surprised, and all of a sudden the Acclaimed was like, "Yeah, we're the number one contender," and I was like,
"Well, remember before Max Caster got banished from TV, they were battling it out with the Varsity Blondes for number one contendership. So I guess when they came back and after the Varsity Blondes had lost, because one was number 2 and one was number 1, and when by the time they came back, Varsity Blondes had lost in that eliminator tournament, so they dropped down a few points in the rankings. So,
Oh, one thing I learned from Max Caster and from MJF. And and Joey Janela, and which is apparently to get heat in Philadelphia right now. All I got to do is mention Ben Simmons' name.
Apparently so. That will get you massively.
That's the heat magnet that you have in Philly right now is to say like, Ben Simmons is awesome.
And apparently, apparently not just that. Apparently, the crowd will yell curse words on live television all night long for the rest of the match.
They're more like, you guys make my heart job a lot harder right now by doing this shit. You know that, right?
Sometimes
trade the guy if you guys act like this. No one's gonna take him.
You know what? If Max Caster knows anything, it's how to get heat.
And a little too well.
maybe a little too well.
Maybe he's rein it a little bit, but yeah. Well, no, now looking at his speeches.
And they have rapped about quite a bit. So here is my theory about the Ricky Starks Brian Cage match, and why I think maybe it's not wrapped up yet, because I assumed from the way they had been booking it that they were booking it ultimately for Brian Cage to win. And probably if this had happened at All Out or when they were planning it, he probably would have won.
Yeah, but then the injury.
Well, it was an injury for Starks, injury for him, stuff coming back, so get putting pushed off and off and off till it was finally available to happen here in Rochester or here in Philadelphia. And I think what happened was they looked at it, they said, we're at the ECW arena. We want to do a tribute to ECW. We have the FTW title, so we should make it an FTW title match. And we should make it a no holds barred match so we can bring out the barbed wire, the trash cans, and the bats, and all the ECW stuff, and let them go to town in a classic ECW match. But as soon as they, I know,
I don't think that was the right. I mean, it's a right idea, but not with those.
That's I know. I don't know if that entirely worked, but I think that's how they got to that mindset. And I think as soon as it became like, oh well, we're making an FTW match, now Ricky Starks has to win. But it also makes me think they still haven't had the actual reckoning yet, and which altogether sort of deflated this whole.
At least you hope for Brian Cage's sake that that's what's going on.
I hope so too. That's all. That's the only way I could make sense of it. Otherwise, I was like,
made up belts. That's why they have to think they were big $1 million belts and a big deal to me. It's just like, okay, so I just can't say like, hey, look, here's my championship lighter. Can't beat it. Like it's the same concept. Like you can't just make something good just by saying it's good or that it's worth something.
In this case, I think it's only just because it's so heavily connected to ECW.
This is my Rin speculation.
But so if Rin's should tell us anything, it's that all you can say is something's worth something, and who's going to tell you otherwise? Put their money where their mouth is. But I feel like that's how they got there. But I feel like that actually made this weaker and not stronger. Like maybe it was good for the people in the arena, but it weakened the feud.
Yeah. Didn't you? Because I don't know who this did favors for. I just really felt like it was like fine. We've been doing this match. Let's just do it, get it over with. Book it this way for whatever reason. Yeah. Which I hope is that it's going to be a longer feud, like you said. Because if it's just the end of the feud, then that's very unfortunate for Brian.
Yeah, it's not very often that AEW makes.
Honestly, I love watching the.
Yeah, it's not very often that like AEW makes profound booking mistakes. Sometimes they make small ones, but they don't make
right. And we mentioned that quite a bit. And usually it's like, but this one, I mean, I'll give the benefit of the doubt. Let's see. I hope it's not that because that just means they lost faith in Brian Cage. So. Yeah,
it could mean or just like things didn't go their way and they had to change some stuff. You never know, or they decided this isn't working. But unlike WWE, I'm willing to say let's see where this goes. And I don't know.
Do you think if he goes to WWE, he'll be used well there?
No. I mean, he's not going to be losing out to a bunch of small guys there, but they've got a ton of big giant dudes there that they can. I mean, they're burying Keith Lee, who's way more talented than Brian Cage, and they're destroying him. They're burying Karrion Kross. So it's not like being a big guy at WWE means you're going to go.
But that's also what sucks for him is that like, okay, so if this doesn't work out, then he's not going to go to WWE, right? Like he's got to punch it down a little bit. Yeah. So,
but I don't know.
That's you're an actual clairvoyant in the sense that this is what happens.
That's all I can think of. I mean, Tony Khan has always talked about being very, very high on Brian Cage, so I would be surprised if he soured on him so quickly. But who knows? Who knows what's happening? Yeah. That's the only way I could make sense out of it.
Right. Yeah. It's the only thing that would seem like kind of fair, or like you said, just logical in this sense.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens, but we won't see it tonight because we're busy recording this podcast. We will see it on Friday with a double-sized edition of Rampage.
Dynamite this week is they're like, when's the next episode of AER coming out? Tony's like, God damn it, Shameek. God damn it, Josh.
I'm assuming. Hey, it's not my fault.
We'll move this to Saturday.
It's not my fault. This is when we had to record it. So, I'm sorry, AEW watchers. This is just this obviously is more important.
Or hey, enjoy your week. Spend some time with your kids. It's
come on. Get some extra sleep. Watch, we'll put Dynamite on Saturday when you can stay up. You get that 2 hours and still sleep in the next day. So, it's all good for everybody. When wrestling is supposed to happen on Saturday nights.
They used to. Saturday morning and Saturday nights. That's when you start.
That's right. That's right. And you know what? I loved the Saturday Night Dynamites last year. I know not a lot of people watched them, but that's just the way it goes. But I enjoyed both of them tremendously, and I am very much looking
Fair
forward
enough.
to this one.
Yeah.
And this is it's not like a stacked card, but it's a solid card.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of have ever since the influx of people, it seems like they've had like, just very, I mean, like every time you look at the card, you're like, huh, like that's okay.
Yeah.
Like there's at least one match you're like, I really want to see that.
Well, it's really they've got so many people now that they've got like such a good lineup that not we always talk about them struggling to
but don't go to 3 hours.
People on
Please
TV.
don't go to 3 hours.
No, they're not going to do that. We talk about them struggling to get everybody on the air, but it also means like they always have lots of people to fall back on.
I am okay with Rampage going 2 hours eventually.
I don't know. I really like it as an hour.
Because there was that one night where there was 2 hour Rampage and 2 hour Dynamite. It felt like a fast 2 hours.
If they were going to get anything out of that, they'd have to move it to they'd either have to move it to Tuesday or Thursday because 2 hours of Rampage on Friday is going to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not a big fan of wrestling shows on Friday nights to begin with, so maybe they'll just move it to Friday. We'll see. A lot of their scheduling being dictated by TBS and TNT right now. It seems like, and not them. So.
Very much so. I think a lot of that will change. I mean, that's part of the reason for the move to TBS because stuff on TBS does not get preempted for sports, so it'll be more standard and more and not.
TBS I think only does baseball. They don't do basketball. Only they do basketball during the playoffs. And that's
pretty much. And even then, they can move around because most of that stuff still goes to TNT.
Right. So
and they don't do playoff stuff. Like all that stuff goes on to TNT. So it'll work out well. Interesting through the forbidden door. So we can for just a second to knock on the forbidden door to this past week because I feel like I'm clutching my fingers that it's going to play out onto Dynamite. So last week was AAA's most recent pay-per-view, Heroes Immortales. And the Lucha Brothers defended the AAA tag team title, which they
they finally brought the belts on.
Which they have been carrying on the show. They have been mentioning on the show that they're both the AEW and AAA title.
You told me that last week, and I was like, I don't know that. They don't ever bring the belts. I mean,
they brought the belts.
So finally, they brought the belts to
the show. They 4 belts. And they're Lucha Brothers 4 belts. But they defended again in a fantastic match against Laredo Kid and Hiel del Vikingo, which is just if you don't know those guys are some Ray Phoenix level.
Been pretty familiar to AEW fans.
But they are both like some Ray Phoenix level crazy high flyers. A lot of people have been pegging Vikingo as maybe someone to be an opponent for Kenny Omega down the road, including Kenny Omega, which would be really interesting. So those guys are great. And so this week on Dynamite, it's a AAA tag team title match, Lucha Brothers against 2 masked luchadors of Andrade's choice that he has not announced who they're going to be. Right. So, I mean, it could be some, he's talked a lot about wanting to bring like Roosh and Dragon Lee and Dralistico over. And Roosh is out with like some knee stuff, but Dragon Lee and Dralistico aren't. I mean, just not signed with ROH, but they could come if they wanted to, probably. But a lot of people are guessing maybe Laredo Kid and Hiel del Vikingo, one of who's been here, and Vikingo, like everybody in AEW has said they wanted to get Vikingo here. They just had like visa problems, so maybe this is the first time they get to be seen on AEW. I'm very curious to see who that's going to be.
You don't think it's going to be Marco Stunt with the mask and him in Fuego del Sol?
I do not think it's going to be Marco Stunt with the mask and Fuego del Sol. No.
Well, I'm assuming whoever is not going over anyway. So
no, but it's going to be. Yeah, I can give you about 1.1 million reasons why not. But let's suffice it to say, it is not going to be Marco Stunt in a mask and Fuego del Sol. But I'm assuming it's someone cool from AAA, but we shall see. All right, it'll be an interesting weekend. Friday, 2 hours of AEW. Saturday, 2 hours of AEW, and then Sunday, hopefully, we will be back with a nice short.
One thing I want to ask you real quick before we sign off. Right. I did see on the internet this week there was a short little clip video, a little funny segment between Orange Cassidy and Ric Flair.
Really? I did not see that.
Orange Cassidy's glasses, and it was pretty funny. But that also made me wanted, led me to ask. So, has there been any news on this? Has the heat off of Rick died to where AEW can bring him over, or you haven't heard anything?
Nothing. He's not moving anywhere. Nothing's happening anywhere. My guess is probably not. I think at best it would be maybe months before Rick has a chance of showing up, if he's going to show up at all. This may be something that they're just like, no. I don't know. I mean, they brought Sammy Guevara back eventually. They brought some guys they've let go and some guys they've brought back. So
I'm not convinced that Andrade exactly needs a manager more than a translator at this point, if anything. So. But like, yeah. So I mean, he's got a lot of personality. So I think if Rick comes over, it's basically because Andrade wants him there. That's why.
Yes, I think if he comes, it's because Andrade wants him there, and Andrade has said he wants him there. He said he basically wants his whole family to be there. He'd like Charlotte to be there. He'd like Roosh and Dragon Lee to be there. He'd wants everybody with him, and
also, Charlotte, maybe still work the match when you're pissed off, but yeah, that's the only thing I can say.
Yeah. They'll be getting into weird fights and exactly. But you know what? What can you do?
Yeah, it must be maddening to have someone that bad, but still, we got.
But sometimes you just got to get your shit together and get it done, no matter how bad your opponent is.
Yeah, because usually when that type of stuff happens, it's because Jeff Hardy's on drugs. So at least this time, when it's not like that, it's like, what's the excuse? You're just bad professionals. So, anyways, but yeah, so it'd be interesting to see if this whole exodus of people from WWE goes over to AEW in the form of Charlotte Flair also coming over.
But I don't think that's ever going to happen. I honestly don't.
I mean, well, I thought a lot of things would happen. I never thought
that's
they'd get rid of Black, but yeah,
that's true.
That seems even more. That's another level of insane.
That one would be real.
Booker to win every title all the fucking
I'm trying to think of somebody who's pushed at the top of their card who they book to beat everyone all the time and keep trying to make an overall baby face even though everyone hates her.
Yeah, it's like John Cena, letting John Cena go all of a sudden for some reason.
Yeah. I can at a certain level I do understand them letting like a Braun Strowman or a Bray Wyatt go, but Charlotte Flair
she's basically
makes sense. Yeah, that'd be like I wouldn't say Roman Reigns, but that'd be like letting a Seth Rollins or someone go. That'd be
right. Yeah,
they'd have to something really weird would have to be going on.
Right, exactly. It's something that we don't know about, or something that just made her not marketable anymore.
No, it would have to be at a point where like WWE is no longer the number one promotion, and
have to find a bunch of racist emails and stuff like that. Like John Gruden. That's how you would get out of it. And even wrestling, that might not even work.
No, because it worked against Tessa Blanchard.
I'm sure people like that guy. So.
Hulk Hogan can't go anywhere except for WWE because they're the only ones who don't care. Tessa Blanchard can't go anywhere but WOW because they don't care. I mean, it actually does close doors these days. The only thing
like that doing some face in society. So
yeah. No, the only thing that would do it would be money. It would be if WWE suddenly was like number 2 and saying we can't make $5 million deals anymore.
Or if all their bad bookings led to a severely, low stock price and they just had to cut like people off. Or
like that. Pretty much, yeah.
But not on their own volition. They would never do that.
No. Mm-hmm. Well, we shall see. We'll come back a year from now for the 3-year Dynamite anniversary show and see how much the world has changed again in just another.
And how much we've changed.
I'll have hair by then.
Yeah, crazy things have happened.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I'll have like some type of traumatic experience with a dude in a bowling shirt, and I'll be like, "Oh my god!" Now
you will love QT. I was just gonna say that's what's gonna change.
I'm not even good at bowling.
You will love QT. Well, we're getting ready to start teaching. Maybe we're going to start teaching the kids to bowl. They've been showing an interest in it. So, did I ever tell you that was my sport in college? That was what all my PE credits were in college, was bowling. I was decent at it too.
Such bowling territory, dude. Like people love bowling all up and down the East Coast. That's one thing I learned from living close to there.
East Coast of the Midwest. That's like bowling area, bowling territory.
Yeah,
Chicago and Indiana, Ohio. It's bowling territory.
Yeah, like people play places where they play lacrosse and places where the people bowl a lot. I'm pretty sure there's a lot. There's a Venn circle diagram overlap in there.
Probably.
Yeah.
One day QT's
I like Kingpin a lot. That's really cool.
One day QT's gonna take off those bowling shirts and we're not gonna recognize them anymore.
It's gonna be something worse. It's gonna be like a golf shirt, or it's gonna be like the new Kerwin White or something like that.
And that's when you will wish for the bowling shirts to come back. And
no, what I'm just waiting for John Hyden all week. That's what I'm waiting.
No, that's not gonna
happen. Come on, bring him back.
Mm-hmm. No.
Get a Michael Cole lookalike, bring him back.
Nope. Oh, fuck you. Don't you let that evil out into the world.
Simulate rape?
No. Don't be bringing any of that out, and don't be bringing anything Michael Cole. You keep Michael Cole away from AEW. Nothing.
I mean, if he serves that role, then that's fine. I think this should be humped by John Heidenreich.
No, not even that.
But you actually felt sorry for him? You're like, damn, Michael.
I did feel sorry for him, but that's still enough to get.
Would you feel worse for him or Katie Vick's corpse?
Katie Vick's corpse.
Yeah, of course.
I think everyone says Katie Vick's corpse. I feel worse for whoever had to make that stuff.
We want to talk about bad stories.
No, let's not talk about that.
Bad stories.
Hey, you know what? That's the kind of stuff that will make you start to appreciate QT Marshall for the genius that he is.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, everything's relative. There's bars being set every day. So
that's right.
Yeah, where's QT bar? Maybe it's high, maybe it's low. And it depends on everybody else to bring them up or down.
That's right.
Exactly. That's the magic of QT.
We're all working together.
It's not because of what he does. It's always, he's the default guy.
He is the living embodiment of white privilege.
Yeah. I mean, if you're admitting that, then he obviously is.
I'm not blind. But you know what? That's all right. That's part of diversity right there.
Exactly. Yes. A wooden ship, an old wooden ship.
That's right.
Anchorman joke for you guys who didn't.
Hey, if it's enough to just have him come out and get the crap kicked out of him by Big Show once per year.
Yeah, it was. Oh, another thing I'll say real quick before we sign up. I have noticed that on Elevation, it started doing a 4-man, I guess, table now with Tony, Mark, and Big Show and Eddie. Yeah. Big Show has gotten better because he's starting to pick and choose when he talks now, which is a lot better than him just saying everything he wants to say on his mind. And I noticed that. So he has been improving a lot. And Mark Henry, I'm not sure. I'm still not buying Mark Henry's energy on commentary.
He's really good at the interview stuff. I really like his interview stuff. Right. Commentary, maybe it's not his niche. Yeah.
I'm just like give him more coffee before the thing or something like that. Just get him a little bit faster delivery, a little bit more excited, that type of thing. But yeah, so I do like that, and of course, having Eddie on there improves things a lot. But I will say, Big Show is improving your talk.
Yeah.
Well, I commentary at least. He's also good in-ring talker. He's getting better at commentary.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what it's there for, to get him used to it, and they'll probably rotate more guys around, and just have more guys who can do commentary. Same reason they've rotated like Ricky Starks.
Except just why was Dark 22 minutes this week? It's also like if you were in Orlando and you go to the show, right? And then you're like, everybody else got to see this for an hour and I got to see for 22 minutes? What the hell?
Well, it doesn't work like that because they're taping. So you're like, you go into Orlando, you get to see 3 hours of Dark in the morning, and you get to, or 3 hours of Dark in the afternoon, because they do like, one big giant batch, and then they chop it up. Like everything that we've watched for the last 4 weeks, they taped in one day and they just chopped it up. I was wondering that. I was like, is it because they're also throwing a bunch of stuff on YouTube on Friday? I don't know how they make those decisions.
The pattern going forward is basically Dark's gonna be a half-hour show from going forward in Elevation.
I expect it's probably going to be I think they're probably both going to be like an hour or 45 minutes, but I don't know. Like, I didn't understand it when it was 3 hours long either. I was like, what are you guys getting out of this? So I given up trying to understand it.
Never consistent scheduling. But we'll see. The Elevation has been consistently scheduled, but Dark is all over the place.
Yeah, because Elevation's always like that hour before the show starts. Dark is just
right. So I guess you not much leeway as far as how much you can fuck with the time on that one. But Dark, they seem to get every advantage of how much they can do with these shows. So we'll see how long. Maybe we'll have like the whole next week we talk about Dark, because they decided to make it 3 hours again. So
it was a lot to take.
Averages, right? Regression to the mean. So
don't be giving anybody ideas. We don't need to be going back. We don't need to be going back to those ideas or anything with Russell Westbrook.
About 3 hour rock shows, you don't cover YouTube shows. So, but yeah, so it should be. We got some good new shows coming up again this week. So we'll see for Friday and Saturday. So we'll see. We'll be back here Sunday.
All right. Yeah. Let's talk about it. A wrap up like it was a pay per view. 4 weeks.
Okay.
Full gear, baby.
A weekend wrestling, basically. You know, those are nice weekends.
Yeah.
So,
That's a nice, good way to spend the weekend.
mhm.
All right. Well, until then, I'm Josh Starnes.
And I'm Shameek Ghosh.
And this has been All Elite Reviewing. Cue the music.